Good morning, everybody. We're going to go ahead and get started. It is the top of the hour. We have a lot to cover today. So we're introducing what's new in MadCap Flare 2018 and the new release of Central. And today we're going to run through enhancements to how your users interact with your documentation and also enhancements with how you as authors use Flare every day. Really quick introduction for those of you who don't know who I am. My name is Jennifer Morris. I'm the Director of Product Evangelism here at MadCap Software, and I'm just so happy you can join us today. We have a few people still funneling into the webinar, so I'm just going to cover a few reminders, a few housekeeping tips before we begin and give everybody a chance to log in. So a couple things, as we always say. Let me move my slide. This webinar will be recorded. So if for whatever reason, if you have to pop out early, not to worry, we're going to be sending a link to everybody that's registered with a link to this recording. So if you have to leave, not to worry, we'll get you all caught up. There is a questions panel in the GoToWebinar console. So as I'm going through things, if you have any questions about what you're seeing, or if I can clarify anything at the end, feel free to use that questions area, and we're going to do our best to get to as many questions as we can at the end. Whatever we don't get to, though, we'll compile a question and answer document, and we'll be sure to send it out to everybody. You can also use that if you're having any problems hearing me right now, or if you can't see my screen, feel free to drop a line there, and we'll do our best to help you out. But hopefully you all can see my screen, and you can all hear me loud and clear. So let's go ahead and jump right in. I just want to run through a quick agenda in terms of what we're going to cover today. I'm going to list out these things, and then we're going to take a look at them in more detail. So we're going to talk about the new side navigation output in Flare 2018. We're going to also talk about Elasticsearch, and we'll take a look at what that looks like and feels like. Analyzer's now folded into Flare, so we're going to touch on that. Our new cloud-based review workflow with MadCap Central, really excited to run through that with everybody. And then if time permits, I'll touch on a few other minor features and usability improvements. So that's what we're going to cover today. Let's go ahead and jump right in. I'm going to start with the first two up there. I'm going to start with the first, these are more outwardly facing features, and then we're going to fold back into Flare and take a look at some of the features that affect you as authors and how you use Flare every day. So the first two are more for how your customers may experience some of these new features. So let's start with the side navigation output. So I'm going to put PowerPoint away temporarily. I'm going to be doing a little bit of switching from PowerPoint into the browser into Flare. So I'm going to do it as elegantly as I can. So forgive me if it's a little clunky here at first. I'm going to go ahead and pull up an output here. So what we're looking at is the new side navigation output from Flare. With the addition of this new skin, what we can do is we can produce the same frameless, modern look of top navigation output, except you can have your table of contents positioned on the left or the right side of the screen. So this lets you have a structure similar to the old tripane format, but without any frames. So here we can see the TOC is not across the top. It's down the left-hand side, which looks like the old tripane format, but again, this is frameless. So this can be a beneficial option if you want to move to a more modern frameless design, and you like the look of your table of contents down one side of the screen. And maybe you have a long table of contents. Maybe you've always wanted to move to top nav, but it may have been hard to think about re-architecting your table of contents, because when we're dealing with top navigation, there's only so much real estate up here in the header, and you only have so much space to put a top level of your table of contents. So this side navigation output, it's a little bit more forgiving since you have a lot more room here down the side for a longer table of contents. This side navigation output also supports what we call auto syncing of your table of contents. So here I am, I'll just show you an example of what that looks like. Here on this home page, I have this jump here. I can actually go to this other topic, and that's pretty typical. You may direct your users to other places in your documentation. If I were to link to this topic, you'll notice here on the left, my TOC opened and landed on the topic that I jumped to. So from a usability standpoint, we can see where we're going and where we can go in the hierarchy of this TOC. This can also be handy if we're looking at this content in more of a mobile view. If I were to shrink this window down, I'll go ahead and shrink him down here. kind of replicating a mobile site here, we can see we've got the little hamburger menu. If I were to look at this topic again, if I jump to lists, well, that all looks great, but suppose I needed to invoke the table of contents and go somewhere else. When I select the TOC, we can see that it expands and we actually see the topic that we're on. So we just, again, can have a little bit better visibility into where we are in the hierarchy, which can help your end users. So that's the new side navigation output. Now, in Flare, let me get this bigger here. To set this up, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to adjust some settings in your skin. So I'm going to put this away. I'm going to pull up Flare for a moment, and I'm going to show you where this can be adjusted. So I'm going to pull up Flare. So this is controlled in your skin file. That's the gear in Flare that's going to give you this look and feel. I'm going to expand my skins folder. So all my skins are stored here. And you can see I've got this skin here called Side Navigation Output. So here I'm actually in the file. The most important field here in this side navigation skin is this main menu position here. This is where we can tell the skin what side of the page we want the table of contents to go to. So here we can see I've got left selected. I can also choose it to go to the right as well. And if I want, I can do the good old top nav if I want to as well. But this is where we can tell the skin where do we want the table of contents, and we can get a little preview here. This is where we tell the skin automatically synchronize the TOC as I jump around. So those are the two things you want to pay attention to. Now, if you have a project already brewing and you don't yet have this side navigation skin, and if you've upgraded to Flare 2018, what you can do is you can right click on your skin folder and you can add a skin. And we actually put in a side navigation template file in there for you. And once you add it, then you can use the skin editor here to customize it and meet your own, branding needs and requirements. The other thing we did is we included, if you don't have a project going, if you wanted to start one, you'll notice if we go to the start page here, in our project templates, we actually built in a side navigation project right here. So you can start a project with this side navigation with all these bits in place. And again, just placeholder stuff, placeholder topics, placeholder skin design. You can change any of those things to meet to further customize all of your branding requirements and needs. Now, speaking of side nav and top nav, let me go back here to my browser and pull him up for a moment. This header area here for both top nav and side nav, that's been encapsulated into a flexbox. Now, flexbox is a layout module in CSS3 designed to improve the way items align in the container that they're in. So that's new in this release. And this just allows for more flexibility for placing things in the top navigation or your side navigation headers up here. So I wanted to make mention of that. All right, so this is the side nav. I want to move now to Elasticsearch. So in previous versions, we had the choice between the default MadCap search out of the box and also Google search for online help. You may recall last year we introduced the ability to use Google search as your search engine. Well, now we've got a third option called Elasticsearch. In this new search experience, you can enable this for your end users, and you can use this in your top navigation outputs. You can use it in your side navigation outputs like we're looking at here, and also skinless sites, so if you're not using a skin. Now, Elasticsearch isn't anything that MadCap made. This is a powerful, scalable, open source search engine, and lots of organizations use it, to enhance the user search experience. And it's often the backbone search for lots of the e-commerce and business sites that we all use every day. And it's pretty cool. And I'll show you what it looks like. So let's say I'm in my help system here, my online output, and I want to do a search for something. I'm going to start typing in a word. And notice what we see, we get this kind of predictability experience. What the search is showing us, it's actually showing me, I actually searched on the word images before. So it's showing me past results. So it's auto-completing results for me based on things that I've searched on. It's also auto-completing results based on content that's in my project already. So it's actually kind of nice. Now, if I were to search on one of these or select one of these, I'll just choose images here. The other thing that I want to point out, what Elasticsearch gives you is the ability to search and retrieve non-XHTML files. You'll notice I've got this PDF as my search result here. So I published I compiled my output, but I also had some PDF files as part of my project. So if you're publishing not only your Flare generated topics, but maybe PDF files, maybe some Office documents, maybe some Word docs or some PowerPoint files, Elasticsearch allows you to search and retrieve those files if they're published as part of your project. So we're not limited to just topic files. The other nice thing it does, let's say your users, and I do this all the time, if I'm going quickly, I may misspell the word or the keyword that I'm typing. So if I were to go quickly here and I search on image, thinking I'm typing the word image, I also get this kind of fuzzy match experience. I get this, did you mean? So it's sort of sensing, oh, I think you meant image, and it'll give me results. So it's kind of that Google experience where you misspell something, but it still gives you results anyways. So it's kind of nice. Now, to use Elasticsearch for your output, there's a couple things you're going to want to do in Flare. So again, I'm going to switch over to Flare and we're going to take a look at this quickly. So I'm going to go back to my project. And the way you configure Elasticsearch is it's done, well, there's two gears you got to work on. You got to work on your target file, and you're also going to want to do something with your destinations file. So I'll touch on those really quick. So let me open up this target. I've got this guy open. What's new? Well, what's not new? This search tab has been here, but the way we choose Elasticsearch is by going to the search tab in our target file, and we can choose the type. So this is where we tell the target, well, what search are we going to use? Here we can see we've got the default MadCap search out of the box. We've got Google search and now Elasticsearch. When you choose Elasticsearch, all of these options show up. Now, we've filled in all of these things with some default values, and you can go in here and change all of these things. Even just keeping the default values here, it works great. And once I get all these set up, the next thing I got to think about is, well, by the way, I should note, I've got all this set up in Flare. I've got my target. I can build this and test it locally. The search that we were just looking at, we were just looking at that on my local machine. I didn't have it published to a server. And so, but in the real world, you're probably going to want to have your content published to a server so that your users, can access it. So if you decide you want your end users to experience Elasticsearch rather than the default MadCap search so that they get that auto completion, they can see, their past search results. And by the way, when you publish it to a web server and you've got it configured that way, your end users will also see auto-completed search results based on what others have searched on as well. So not only their searches, but what other people have searched on as well who've hit that help system. So that's kind of nice. So if we want to do that, we have to publish our content to our primary web server. We have to get that content somewhere so that our users can access it. And that can actually be wherever you want. You're also going to want to have a second publishing destination. So in my example, I've got a primary web server. I also have an Elasticsearch publishing destination. And I'll just open this real quick. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail here. We actually have this very well documented. But I added a new destination type. And in the type, we have a new option here called Elasticsearch. So what this allows you to do is once you get the Elasticsearch service configured on your web server, you're going to have this destination URL. All you have to do is put that destination URL here because that's the location of that Elasticsearch service. And once you've got that done in your target file, those are the two destinations you're going to choose. So if I look at my publishing destinations here, here's my primary web server, and it allows me to choose Elasticsearch on the Elasticsearch destination. This will show up if you add one of these destinations over here. And that's it. So once we're done, we can publish, and all of our content's going to go to our web server, and it's going to use Elasticsearch as that search mechanism. So again, we have this very well documented in the help. And we have stuff you can give to your IT folks, whoever's managing your web server. They can look at that and get it configured. And if there's any questions at all about how to do it, just contact us, and we're happy to help you directly. Now, we've got these three search options here. To determine the type of search that's best for you, I would recommend that you generate some different outputs using each method. Okay, perform some different searches. See what you like best. What do you think your end users will like? And again, the nice thing about Elasticsearch is you can test this locally. I don't have to get it all configured on a web server to try all this stuff out. So if you want to build it locally and test it, you can, and then maybe make the case to get it configured on a server internally if you want your end users to use it. And by the way, Elasticsearch is free. You don't have to pay for this. So it comes with Flare, and you can get it configured on your own server. So again, we'll go back to the browser here just to kind of get out of Flare, but a couple things to remember on terms of its benefits. We get that autocomplete functionality, right? We can see searches that we've done in the past. We'd be able to see what other people have searched on, and we get those auto-completed results based on content that's in our published help. We get that did you mean functionality. So if we misspell something, we still get results based on this match here. And it's a free platform. And by the way, it's also ad-free. Unlike the Google search option, if you choose Google search as your search, you can, that's also free, but you may see ads in the results. Google loves ad revenue, so you may see some of those show up in your search results. With Elasticsearch, you won't see that. It can be tested locally. You don't have to have it configured to a server to try all this stuff out. It's designed to scale, so it works great on small and large documentation sets. Again, as we saw, it allows you to search and retrieve non-XHTML files. Here, I've got that PDF result. Unlike Google search, your content can be private. So it was tricky about the Google search. While it was kind of cool, Google had to be able to see it. And that's not always an option for some folks. So if your content needs to be private, you can publish all of your stuff and keep it on a private web server, including the Elasticsearch service, and your customers will still be able to utilize all this functionality. And of course, you can use the skin editor to change the look and feel of these things. So, this "did you mean," that text can change. The way these images look, you can change these little guys. You can use the skin editor to customize the look and feel for all this stuff. So some pretty fun benefits, but again, give it a go, test it out, see which one you like better, and then use the one you want to use. All right, so that's Elasticsearch. Now I want to transition a little bit and go kind of turn inward to Flare. We just took a look at some of the outwardly facing features, the side nav output in this Elasticsearch. I want to transition over Flare and talk about the things that we've added there. So I'm going to put the browser away for just a moment. We're going to pop back over to Flare. Now, one thing you'll notice is we talked about in the beginning, we folded MadCap Analyzer into Flare. So we don't have to use a separate tool or purchase a separate tool and launch it from our desktop in order to get project analysis. We can run all of our project analysis right from within Flare. So we've simplified it, and it's hopefully something that all writers will use now. I think that every writer should be using MadCap Analyzer. I think every writer should have. It's this great Swiss Army knife of tool that does so much stuff, but I think that it just sort of sat there collecting dust sometimes because people forgot to use it. Well, now we've folded it into Flare, and I hope you all take advantage of it. And what you'll notice is there's a new ribbon up here called Analysis, and this is all of the MadCap Analyzer functionality that was available as a standalone tool folded into the Flare UI. So right from Flare, I can run my project scan, I can run a quick summary at any point in time, and I can see what issues are critical. The stuff that's in red, you're probably going to want to address right away. Obviously, you don't want any broken links. Maybe you want to address some of these undefined variables and condition tags. And unlike just showing you a report, Analyzer actually lets you find and fix these things. So I can look at all of my broken links. I can fix them all with just a click of a button. It makes it so much easier. I don't just have a report with a list of files that I got to go hunt and peck and find. This is going to let me fix these links really, really quickly. The other nice thing about Analyzer, and I wish I had time to go into all of the things it does, but I'm just going to mention some of my favorites here. Tons of webinars on this and some great documentation. It finds unused files. So as your project evolves over time, you may be left with a lot of images that are just sitting there taking up space, topics that are just taking up space. Nothing's linking to it. You're not linking from it. They're just like old clothes sitting in your closet taking up room. Well, this shows you all of those unused files, and you can make some decisions whether you want to keep them in there or just get rid of them. If I'm looking at these unused content files, these are just images and files sitting there not doing anything. So you may want to use some of these reports or these metrics here to multi-select a bunch of stuff and clean out your closet a little bit. Another great thing that Analyzer tells you, it gives you a ton of suggestive reports. I like the snippet in the variable suggestions. The variable suggestions, this actually shows you regular text that matches variables in your project. This is a huge time saver. One of the reasons why we use Flare is for all of the content reuse that it offers. So if you accidentally didn't use a variable where you should have, this is a wonderful way to keep track and make sure that you're not missing out on that variable usage. If you had I only have one suggestion here, but if I had a long list of files, I could select all of them, click apply, and Analyzer is going to convert that regular text to the matching variable. So it's a wonderful time saver. If you haven't used it, I highly encourage you to check that out. So that's all folded in. We don't have to have a separate tool on our desktop anymore. You can use it right out of the box. Okay, so moving on to the next one here, just checking my time. Let's talk about the review workflow with MadCap Central, which is really, really exciting. So with this new workflow, The whole review process is going to be so much easier and simplified, since all of the reviews now can be done in the cloud using MadCap Central. So if you have a MadCap Central subscription, this new workflow is going to let you add non-Flare users, in other words, subject matter experts, to your Central license. Then you can collaborate with those subject matter experts as well as other Flare authors by sending them topics and snippets for review right from Flare. Now, if you don't yet have a subscription to Central, you will always be able to try this out for free. As long as you have Flare 2018, you can sign up for a free trial of Central, and I'll touch a little bit on that again at the end, but you'll be able to test all of this out. Now, before we jump into this fun new stuff, I do want to quickly review what Central is for those of you who may not be familiar or who may be hearing this, or maybe you haven't put your hands on it yet to give it a go. So I just want to quickly touch on a couple things. So I'm going to come back over to PowerPoint here. So real quick review, what is MadCap Central? Well, it's a cloud-based platform that we built. It lets you plan, it lets you track and manage processes, content, and really the teams that are responsible for producing documentation. And why did we build this thing? Well, for years, Flare has been, our Flare users, excuse me, you've been letting us know about problems with documentation, things like workflow challenges, technological challenges, and so on. And we know that not all of these problems are things that Flare can solve on its own. So just as an example, I'll run through a couple things here. Source control. Let's talk about source control real quick. Teams often need an easy to use version control solution that all writers can use, or maybe a better source control solution than what's already in place. And sometimes getting help from IT or just thinking about getting help from IT to get everything set up and configured can feel a little bit daunting. This is an area where Central can help. With a couple clicks of a button, Flare authors have instant access to source control, and they can easily collaborate on projects. Another area we see that we've heard about for years, task management. Well, we've seen authors make use of all kinds of things to keep track of the things they have to do to manage documentation. In the building of this, we looked over a lot of people's shoulders to see, well, how do they keep track of all the things that they have to do in a release, all the things that have to happen when you need to create new content. We've seen big, scary spreadsheets. We saw sticky notes all over walls. People just had tribal knowledge kept lodged in their brains, and just all these different things. And so Central offers an easy to use task board and also checklists to keep you on track. Now, really excited, we have this new browser-based review workflow. Getting subject matter experts involved is another area that has been challenging. We've always offered Contributor as a way to fold in your subject matter experts into the review process, but we often heard it was challenging to get SMEs to install and use another piece of software. Not that it was difficult to use, but as you know, subject matter experts can sometimes come in lots of different skill sets. And so while Contributor was designed to be very scaled down and easy, it was still different. It wasn't Word. I wasn't typing an email, in my Gmail browser or using Google Docs. It was just different. So now we've done away with the need to install any kind of desktop tools. The new review workflow using Central means your subject matter experts can review all of their content in a browser and edit those files in a simplified, lightweight editor. So we keep the power and the security of Flare as a desktop tool for the authors, and now we can pair it with this easy-to-use browser-based tool for editing. So we'll take a look at that. That's going to be the bulk of this for the rest of the presentation. Build management. Okay, so another big challenge we hear is that users want to have a programmatic build process in place. They don't want to purchase another build license or configure additional build servers to build everything programmatically. Central makes this really easy to do with a couple of clicks. And authors with the appropriate permissions in Central, you can do all this on your own. You can be self-reliant to set all of that up. And the last thing I'll just touch on is hosting. If you're a Flare user, it's really simple to build outputs, right? You click a button that says build, and you've got this output file. But then what? We need to get this beautiful HTML5 site that we developed, or our PDF files online, so that our users can get access to them. And sometimes folks found that time consuming. Again, like the source control, people may not have internal resources to get a staging server and a web server set up quickly. So Central offers an easy and inexpensive way to stage and host all of your content so that your end users can view the published output. So what we were seeing again is that single authors and also teams of authors, they were using so many different processes rather than being more integrated in their approach to documentation and content management. So our goal with Central is to offer a more unified cloud platform with features that help lone authors, because even if you're a lone author, you can make use of Central, and teams of authors. And of course, now with the review, now we can easily fold in all of the supporting folks, all those that support the content developers, to manage the technical documentation process as a secure managed service. Okay, so that's kind of what Central is. Again, I'm going to put PowerPoint away, and I'm going to go into Central, and we're going to take a look and do a, show the workflow here. So let me just pull up my browser window, and we'll go back into Central. So here I am in Central, okay? I've done a couple things ahead of time. I've actually got a Central license. I've logged into that license. I can see I'm successfully logged in here. Here's my name. And I've also invited some users to my license. I have a number of folks here. So I'm here, I've got Justin here. Justin's actually silently on the phone because he's gonna help us with this review workflow today. And I've got some other folks as well. I've also got a local project copied up into Central so that I can use all of the fun things that Central has to offer, including our new cloud-based review workflow that we're gonna check out. So here I am in the Users tab. One thing you'll notice, we've got this new Reviews button here. So that's new, and we're going to take a look at that in just a moment. Now, if you've got permissions in Central, you can invite users to your Central license. So here I'm a user admin, and you need to be a user admin to invite folks. And when you invite someone, all you have to do is click the plus button. And here's where we can designate what kind of person they are in Central. So I'll tell Central I'm going to put in their person's first name, the person's last name, I'll put in their email address. And this is where we can tell Central, well, are they a full author? Are they going to have access to all of the stuff Central has here? Or are they going to be a subject matter expert? So if we choose subject matter expert, they don't have any permissions, because what they're going to see, and we'll take a look at this, is a much more scaled down view. So we'll put in this information, we'll click send invitation. Your SME or SMEs, they're going to receive an email. And in that email is going to be a link that will allow them to create a password so that they can log in to your license of Central. And as soon as they log in, you'll see their status here is active. Once you invite somebody, they'll show up here on the list, but it will say invited. As soon as they click that link that they receive, they're going to show up here as active. Okay, so we've got our users up here. We've got our projects synced up there. And now it comes time to some fun stuff. All of the reviews, as I mentioned, they're all going to be done in a browser. And again, the fun thing, nobody has to install anything. So now what we want to do is we want to get some files up here so that we can start reviewing. So we're going to put Central away. I got to put my Flare hat on for a moment, and we're going to send out a file and run it through the process. So back over to Flare we go. Oh, it opened in my other window. Let me pull this guy over. So here's a project. Okay, it's got some content in it. Before the webinar, I actually took a couple seconds and I copied this project up to Central. I was able to log into my Central license from Flare, which if you haven't done it yet, up in the view menu, there's a little MadCap Central button. And this will allow you to put in your email address and the password that you used when you set up your Central subscription. So same one. And once you log in, you can use these little buttons up here to copy your project up to Central. So I already clicked this plug and I uploaded this local project up to MadCap Central. So everything's up there, Central can see it. So here we go. Now as an author, I've got my content and it's time to get some other folks to review. So you can choose some files for review. I've just got one file here. And when it comes time to send it out, you're going to go to this review tab, kind of like how you did with contributor. We'll go up to the review tab and we're going to send this file for review. And we get this dialog that comes up. So it lists it here. Now I can add additional files in this list if I want. If I click this button, it'll let me browse to other files in my project. So I can add topics and snippets here. Or, if you were the type of person who liked to send topics out for review using your TOC, that's a nice way to do it. You can multi-select a bunch of files from your TOC and send them all out for review, and they're all listed here. Now I just have a basic topic, but if your topic happens to have a snippet file in there, what will happen is the snippet file will come along with it. And you can decide as an author, maybe you don't want your subject matter experts to bother with the snippet files. If you think it's going to be too confusing for them, even though they'll be listed here, you can always remove any files that show up here. So if you think the snippets are going to be too much, you can always take them out. The good news is when we look at it in the lightweight editor, the snippet content will still be there. So your reviewer will be able to see the snippet information in context. They just won't be able to edit that snippet. So your choice, and you can make that decision. but everything you want to send will be here. This is where we tell Flare to send it to Central. This is the old way, this is contributor, and this is the new way. So then I click next, and I've already sent this file for review actually, so I'm just going to pull up this next screen. So we've got this up here. Now here are all of my users in my license. So these are all the folks that were listed as users. So I want Justin to review this because he's on my team. I want him to help me out. He's actually a full Flare author, but he's going to do the reviews in Central. I'm also going to send it to Tim. Tim was a subject matter expert on that users list. And I'm going to cheat because I'm going to log in as Tim so that we can see how this looks and feels from the reviewer's point of view as well. So then I'll click send, and all of those files will be copied up to Central. Now, anybody who's on this list to receive a file for review, they're going to get an email right away that says, you know, you've been summoned, you've got files for review, click here. And as a reviewer, when you click that link in the email, what you're going to see is this. So I'm logged in as Tim. Here we can see his name up here. I'm one of the reviewers in that file. And when I log into Central, notice that it looks a little bit different. I don't have all that stuff down here down the left-hand side. All I have access to is this reviews. And I'm automatically looking at a pending list of all of the files that I'm supposed to review. I didn't need to install anything. I didn't need to open anything. They're just here. So here's that basic steps topic. So let's go ahead and click on him. And what happens is that he opens up in this lightweight editor. And now as a subject matter expert, I can start reviewing content. So maybe I want to come up here and say, you know, here are the basic steps. You can notice that my changes are tracked over here. Maybe we need a colon right there. Maybe I'm looking at this and, you know, this looks like maybe it should be a heading 2. I've got a basic formatting toolbar up here I can use. So as I'm typing, I can make content a bulleted list or a numbered list if I want. Here I can turn this into a heading 2 if I want to. And all of my changes are tracked. So we can use this to edit content. You know, maybe you have subject matter experts, maybe they're not going to actually change anything. You can also just come in here and add comments. Like as Tim, I may look at this and say, ooh, server configuration, that's not me. I can come up here and I can add a comment, click this little guy, and I can say, this is for Justin. I can say this is his domain. So there's my comment, okay? Now watch what happens. Remember, Justin was also on that list to review. So he got an email that said, hey, you have to review stuff. And if you notice what's happening, we see Justin's edits happening concurrently at the same time. So this is another wonderful thing about Central. We don't have to daisy chain files anymore. We can all be in the same file concurrently editing this at the same time. So if different reviewers want to see what other people are saying or what they're doing, we can all be in the same file. We don't have to save files and send them around to other folks for review. All of this is happening concurrently. And of course, everything's getting tracked here on this in this gutter area. One thing I also want to point out is that all of your changes as you're writing and typing, it's all being auto-saved. I don't have to save anything and send it to somebody else. Everything's getting saved automatically. Over here on the right, I want to point out that we can see who the author was. So we can see Jennifer sent this out for review. We can also see who the subject matter experts were. And notice the review status. Mine's still open. I still have this, you know, I can come in here and I can continue to edit if I want. When I'm done editing this file, I can come over here and click this green submit button. And we'll notice this change a little bit. So we can see Justin added his edits and he submitted his changes. Now that review status was set to complete. I made my changes as Tim and everything was set to complete. And now we don't have that list in our pending anymore. It's submitted. Now as a reviewer, I can click on this submitted tab and I can see these are things that I've just submitted. They haven't been folded into Flare yet. These are just files that I've been editing and I've been submitting. So if you are a reviewer and you click submit and you think, oh shoot, I forgot something. As long as it's over here in the submitted area, you can come in here and make additional edits. Now, as soon as the last person on this subject matter expert list, whoever was receiving this for review, as soon as the last person submits their edits, the author, I got an email that said, files have been done, their reviews have been done. So there's a couple things I can do. There's going to be a link in that email that's going to take me right into Central, and I will be able to see this file and check out all the reviews. So I'm going to switch hats. I'm going to pull up my login so we can see what I would see as the full author. So we're going to say goodbye to Tim. This is his work. This is his view here. I'm going to pull up my view of Central because I'm also logged in as me. So here I am back as me. And now when I click on the review tab here, things are going to look a little bit different. I have a couple extra things here. If I were to receive files for review, they'd be in my pending list. I can also see, as a full author, if I click on the sent tabs, I get a list of all the topics that I've sent for review. So here's that one I just sent. So if I had just looked at that email that I received after that last person hit submit, I clicked the link, this is where I would go. I would see this file and I can see everything going on. I could even come in here and make little edits if I want to. I don't have to bring it all back into Flare. If I add anything in here, of course, all of my changes will be tracked and I'll be able to fold all that in. So even little edits can be done here in the lightweight editor. You don't necessarily have to be an SME. You just have to have access to the file. But we do want to get these changes folded back into Flare. So again, I'm going to put this away. I'm going to pull up Flare and we're going to see how that feels to get those changes incorporated. So back into Flare I go. And I'm going to pull up my file reviews. So again, I was notified the last review is done, and we can see I'm looking at this inbox here. Now, if you don't have file reviews open, you know, usually we have Content Explorer and Project Organizer open. Well, I had MadCap Central because I logged in, but if your file reviews isn't there, it's just going to be up here in the review tab, and you can click on file reviews, and this pane is going to open. So I'm looking at my inbox. What would be listed here are all of the files that have come back to me from a review status. So everybody's clicked submit in Central. They're all going to be listed here in my inbox. Now, before we can start changing the file or incorporating those changes, we do have to double click on the file because we want it to open. Flare is actually going to prompt us to close the file. We want to close the file so that it cuts off the connection to Central, so that you can't be in that submitted tab in Central and make any edits. At some point, we have to cut the cord, right? And we can certainly send that file back out for review, but that would be in another review cycle. We want to break that connection so that we can fold in all those changes. So I'm going to close it. And you'll notice that my status went from submitted to closed. So now we can start incorporating those changes. That process is also really handy. Say you sent a file out for review to a handful of folks. One of them goes on some extended vacation, or takes extended leave for whatever reason. We still have to get our edits in, so we can force the closure of a file that we sent out for review in Flare so that we can continue working. We don't have to necessarily wait for all that stuff to come back. We can force the closure and start working on it, and that will cut off the cord. So now I can start bringing in these changes. I can start accepting and rejecting the changes that Tim made, so we can see that their little initials are there, and I can say, yep, that looks good. And I like Justin's insertion there, so I'll go ahead and keep that. Now, annotations, you can choose to keep it there if you want to. If you don't, maybe somebody just gave you some information to do, you can do what you need to do and then delete the annotation if you want. Totally up to you. Or you can keep it there. If you find it distracting, you can always come up here to the review tab and turn it off if you want, or keep it on. Totally your call. So once we're done with all of those changes, well, then we can accept the file. So I'll go ahead and accept the file. We'll click OK. And if we take a look at that, missing style sheet, let me take a look at my topic here. And now all those changes, here's the stuff that Justin added. Here's my heading 2 that I added. It's all incorporated into my topic. So it was really easy. We can continue to work. We can send the file back out for review again, and we can just keep the process going. So that's kind of how it works. I just want to review quickly why we did this, just a couple high-level benefits. So back to PowerPoint real quick. Why is this cool? Well, we don't have to download and install anything. It's all done in the cloud. Very, very easy to do. We've got this ability to multi-user editing, so multiple subject matter experts and authors can make changes, and they can make comments to the same topic or snippet at the same time. We don't need to daisy chain files anymore to see each other's reviews and comments. We've got this review-only interface now with this workflow. We've got this lightweight version of the editor, which means it's much more streamlined, much less going on. We will only see the options and the features that are relevant to the review process. All of the changes in the editor, they're all auto-saved as you work. We don't have to save anything. It's all happening for us. And of course, all of our changes are tracked so that the original author can easily locate those edits for approval or rejection back in Flare. So those are kind of the high-level benefits, and it's actually a lot of fun. Now, again, as I mentioned, if you don't have a central license yet, you can try this for free. You can sign up on our website. You get a 30-day trial. You actually get unlimited authors and subject matter experts for testing purposes. So try it in your own environment. See how it goes, and you know, let us know. Ask us questions. We'd be happy to help you as you test it. Let me just do a quick time check. Okay, we got a little bit of time left. I want to just talk about a few other minor improvements that we had. So a couple other quick mentions. We now support SharePoint 2016 and 365. So if you're using those two versions of SharePoint, that's supported now in Flare. We also offered support now for Microsoft Team Foundation Server 2018. We've also made some improvements to the Salesforce Connect plugin. So if you're using that to publish content directly in Salesforce, well, we now support Salesforce Lightning. So if you're moving to that, and Salesforce is actually going to move to that pretty soon and cut us all off and get us into Lightning. So if you're already there, the connector supports that. And if you're doing multilingual projects in Flare, the connector now supports publishing multilingual projects from Flare into your instance of Salesforce Knowledge. So definitely try that out. We also made a few find and replace enhancements. These are little things, but I think they're kind of cool and maybe you find them useful. And I'll show you real quick since we have some time. I'm going to go back over to Flare here and I'm going to pull up my project and I'll show you what I mean. So here I've got my, if it's not already invoked, up here in the home menu, you can invoke the find and replace in files, just like you always have. But in my example, I'll search for the word images in my whole project. So I'm going to click Find All. And oops, I got ahead of myself. Let's find all. So I'm going to find all, and we can see we got a lot of results here. So this images is found in 208 places. In fact, we also get these, it's in here a few times in this links.htm. Well, we added this little check mark box here. If you want to just find the first result per file, you can select that, and when I click Find All, you'll see my results go down to 20. So I'm not cluttered down here with a bunch of stuff. The other thing you can do, I'll pull up a table of contents here so you can see, if there was a result that you wanted, you can actually click and drag this result into your table of contents now. So quick little time saver. It's a fun little feature, and I wanted to make sure I pointed that out. In the What's New topic in Flare, we go into all of these things in much more detail. I'd encourage you to pop over to our Flare help system and check it out. In fact, I'll pull it up here so you can see. So I'm going to go into the Flare help. In this What's New topic here, we go through all of these things. So we talk about the review workflow, the side nav, we talk about Elasticsearch and all the configuration options, and of course the project analysis, which is Analyzer folded in. And then of course some of those additional features that we mentioned. So check it out if you haven't seen it yet. Now, before we get on to some questions, and I'm going to open up the questions panel here so we can have a look. Boy, lots of good questions coming in. Keep them coming. But let's go back to PowerPoint, and I just want to cover just a couple things. Remind everybody that we have 2 learning conferences coming up. We have our Mad World Conference in San Diego, June 3rd through the 6th at the beautiful Hotel Del. And we also have a second conference this year. We're doing it in Prague. So this is the first year we're doing it in Europe, and we're really excited about it. And that's going to be September 11th through the 14th. So we hope you can come to one of these sessions. Tons of great speakers, great content and things that you'll be able to learn and put to practice immediately when you get back to work. So we do hope to see you there. I also want to make a quick mention is that we have an introductory promotion for Flare and Central. So we are offering a bundled price if you don't have a license of Flare. We're offering a 12-month subscription of Flare, a 12-month MadCap Central author seat, and a 12-month subject matter expert seat. And we're bundling these together. And by the way, it all comes with platinum level maintenance. So you're going to get all updates and updates free, and you have unlimited access to our support team via phone and email. And it's a bundled price of $19.99 US, which is a savings of over $200 per license. So contact sales if you want to learn more about that. If you already have a Flare license and you're interested in a Central subscription, well, then we can help you with that as well. And just so you know, I think there are some questions about pricing in here, so I'll go ahead and just say it. If you're just looking at Central on its own, let me switch slides here. If you're just looking at Central on its own, you can subscribe to Central. The author seat of Central, the person who can see everything, that's $79 per user per month. If you're inviting a subject matter expert, the subject matter expert seat is $10 per user per month. So it's much less. We wanted to make it so that, you know, they're not seeing all the other stuff that the Flare author has. So that's of course why it's priced a little bit less, because their workflow is much more streamlined. So again, for a full author, $79 per user per month. The subject matter expert is $10 per user per month. And you can subscribe on a yearly basis. That promotion that I showed, that was for a year subscription, but you can also go month to month and just do it within the app if you'd like to. And if you have a handful of subject matter expert seats, you can easily deactivate and activate other users. So you can be self-reliant to move those seats around if you want. Maybe you only have maybe you have some subject matter experts that need to review your content temporarily. Maybe when another release comes up or another project comes up, there may be somebody you need to kick off temporarily and re-invite somebody else. Super easy to do in Central. There's no charge to move people around. As long as you have a seat to pass out, you can move these chairs, like musical chairs, you can move these things around really easily within the tool. So we have a few minutes. Let's see our time. We've got some time left. I want to jump over to the questions panel here and we'll go through some of these things. Okay, so it looks like we had some computer audio problems, but looks like those got squared away. And let me just look here on the questions. I can read these. So here's a question, actually a good question. So for Elasticsearch, it looks like the topic name, the abstract, and the file name are returned in the search results. Can I change the search results to show a document title? My users search across many documents on a consolidated doc site. So that is a great question and a fantastic feature. That's not something that we support at this time, but I'll make sure to get that added and make sure we can get that out as a feature. That would be a great thing to have. Let me see another one here. Okay, so let me keep looking here. Can annotations and review comments be archived as part of the review cycle? And actually, they're actually retained in Central as part of source control. So you'll always see everything there. If you want to, another option, if you want to, you know, have those annotations, you know, persist, or you want to archive them, one thing you could do is, as you continue to edit, you can keep track changes on in Flare, by the way. And as we saw, we could keep annotations that come back from Central on. You could generate a Word doc or a PDF file, and there's an option in the target to preserve track changes. And that's another way to preserve those comments in the gutter there. So if you were building a Word doc or a PDF and you preserve those things, you know, in PDF, they'd show up as those red bars or those little comment bubbles, I guess, in PDF, and then Word, they'd show up in the gutter area of the Word file. Okay. So how easy is it to interchange SMEs in MadCap Central if we have 250 SMEs but only need 10 active reviews for any time? So again, I sort of touched on this. In fact, I'll go back over to Central and show you real quick. Let me pull up my browser here, and I'll go over to Central. So here we are in our Users tab. Really easy to activate and deactivate folks. If I need, you know, Tim to go away, notice that I've got one of my 10 users here. I can actually delete him completely. I can also set his status to deactivate. So if I deactivate him and I hit cancel, you can see I just freed up a seat. Now I've got all 10 seats available. So now with one, so if you only had 10 and you deactivated one, you'd have one available here. Now you can come in and you can invite somebody else just by clicking the plus button. So there's no charge to do that. As long as you have a seat to pass out, you can invite another person in. It takes 2 seconds. So hopefully that helped there. So is there an audit trail for the reviews? So again, that's going to be kept in Central. So with all of the files, if we go back to our reviews, let me go into one of the files that have been archived. I didn't touch on this, but this is a good time to. archive, these are files that we've sent out for review that have already been closed out in Flare. So we can't edit them. They're sort of in this read-only state. So if I pull up basic steps, this is that topic we were just looking at. We can't edit anything here because they've already been closed out. All of those changes have been accepted in Flare, but they're listed here in the archive, so we can still get access to them if we need to see what's going on. Okay, so the good question, can you demo how to switch SMEs between active and inactive? So again, I just did that, but what you'll do is here in the users page, you'll just select the user that you want and then set their status to reactivate if they're deactivated. If they are activated, you would choose deactivate. So now Tim has been reactivated and he shows up here as a subject matter expert. Okay, so the website suggests that Mimic is now included in Flare. Can you confirm or show this in Flare? So that's a great question, and I'll clarify that. So Mimic is not necessarily, it's not included in Flare like Analyzer is. But when we fulfilled the new version of Flare, we're actually, if your maintenance is current, we're fulfilling Mimic as part of your maintenance agreement. So if you have maintenance, you're going to get Mimic for free. And you would have received a fulfillment email for that. If you didn't, just contact us and we'll get it squared away for you. But that's going to include a download link and a separate license key for Mimic. So it's not folded in. Mimic is still a separate tool. But if your maintenance plan is active, you would have received that for free. And any new licenses you purchase, any new perpetual licenses or new subscriptions, those will include licenses of Mimic for free as well. So again, not separate, but folded into your Flare license purchase. So hopefully that helps there. Oh, here's a good question. Can you buy only Central licenses and not have Flare at all? If so, which functions would be lost? So Flare and Central are integrated. So you'll want to, at a minimum, a Flare author is going to want to have an author seat in Flare so that you can sync your Flare projects up to Central and so that Central can see them. So, there really wouldn't be one, if you're not a Flare user, there really wouldn't be a reason to have just Central on its own. They do work in conjunction with each other. But I do want to say that, I pointed out in the beginning that source control is one of the things that Central gives you out of the box. Even if you've got a source control system and a workflow in place that you love, you can still utilize Central. We have lots of customers that use Central and they don't use all 5 of those feature buckets. Maybe they just use Central because the source control is really easy, or they're using Central now because the review workflow is really easy. They may not need it for hosting or tasks. So you don't necessarily have to use all of these features here, but some customers do. And even if you've got your own source control solution, that doesn't mean you can't take advantage of Central. You can still do all of your check-ins and your checkouts or your pushes and pulls, whatever system you're using. You can still do that from Flare into your primary source control system. And you can still sync your projects to Central so that you can utilize all of the other fun things that Central has to offer, like this cloud-based review workflow. So you won't be using it for the source control. You'll still use the one that you've got internally, but that doesn't mean you still can't take advantage of all these things. So is there a demo we can watch about Central source control capabilities? Well, I'll tell you that Central uses a customized version of Git. So I didn't have time to get into the nitty gritty of that. We actually do have a webinar that we did last year about this. And what we can do is, I think it would probably be a good idea to find it, and we'll include that link in the slides that we sent out, so at least you'll have a reference of it. But we did have a webinar when we released Central that talked about how to do source control with Central, both on a single bound, which is Central as your primary source control, and also what's called dual bound, which is what I was just mentioning. If you've got a source control solution that you love and you want to continue to use, you still can, and you can use Central for all these other fun things. We call that dual bound, and I think we do have a webinar that covers those things, and we can send that off to everybody. So if you use Central, would your content be stored on your platform in the USA? So that's a good question. So Central isn't actually on any kind of server hardware in our server room in headquarters here in San Diego. MadCap Central is actually a secure managed service that's built on Microsoft Azure. So we're actually leveraging the Microsoft data centers all over the world, and we've built this whole thing on the Microsoft Azure platform. And one of the things we'll send out as part of this webinar is we'll send the our security white paper that talks a little bit more about that. But you know, the quick answer is no, nothing's hosted physically on our locations. We're doing it through a managed data center via Microsoft Azure. Okay, so does the review feature track, also allow me to track who was invited to review and whether they approved without change? So a couple different ways. Let me think about that for a moment. So you will be able to see in the reviews panel here for any particular file, for any file that you sent, you would be able to see who the subject matter experts were and whether they completed it or not. So if somebody had it in the open state, you'd be able to see right away if you went into the file who completed it and who had it open. So you could at least give a gentle little nudge to somebody if somebody was sort of lagging behind and not completing their reviews for you. And if somebody, again, you sent it out for review, that person was on some extended vacation and you need to incorporate changes that everybody else did, remember, we can close out that file in Flare. We can disconnect from Central here and we can fold in all the changes that we do have right from the Flare UI. Can you clarify the payment for Central? I think you have to pay for a master license and then for each seat. So yeah, Central is done on a per seat basis. And so when you buy a Central license, so I would suggest one person on your team, sign up for a trial license if you don't already have it. You'll be the user admin. Then you can invite other users into your license, and you can invite them as authors or subject matter experts. So you can decide up front, well, if we buy this thing, how many authors do we want and how many subject matter experts do we want? And that's how you would manage the seat purchase. So then you could, deactivate and move people around if you decide, well, somebody needs to not be an author anymore. We can get rid of Rob here and we can invite somebody else to be an author. So you can manage all of your users and what they can do right here in the users page. So great question. If you use Central to host content, is there any provision to restrict access to certain documents? That is a terrific question, and at this time, currently, no. I suspect that's going to change, hopefully in the near future, but at this time, if we're using Central to host our content, the URL that Central gives us when we've set a build to live, it's live. That URL can be shared and can be seen by anybody. But again, that's how it is today. I strongly believe that will probably change in the future. So great feature suggestion, and I hope my answer is different to that question in the near future. So that was a good question. Another good question here, if a Flare user is only going to be uploading and downloading projects, does this require a full license of Central? The answer is yes. If you're going to be syncing your Flare projects up to Central and using it, then yes, you're going to want to have an author seat. Because if I look at my permissions here, I'm going to set my permissions. When you invite an author, one thing you're going to be able to do is you're going to be able to assign permissions to them, because Central is very permissions based. So a full author, and again, as a user admin, you have the power to take away or elevate any user's permissions here if they're an author. If they're a subject matter expert, there are no permissions, because all you can do as a subject matter expert is review. But if you're an author, you have some choices here. You may not want to give other authors full admin rights, so you can take those things away. But other Flare authors are probably going to want to have these project level permissions. We want to be able to copy our projects up to Central so Central can see it. Obviously, we want to be able to import other projects that other Flare authors are working on, and we want to push our changes up there. So those can be managed. And then you can also choose, well, even as a full author, do I want to give them the ability to run and schedule builds? Or do I just want them to, view things here? If we're just using Central as a private staging area for our builds, well, maybe we just want to give them the view capabilities. We don't want them to be able to, set anything to live. This would be one, if you don't want to use Central at all for hosting, just make sure that none of your authors have this one checked, because this gives you the power to set something to live. So hopefully that helps there. Okay, so let's see, some other questions are funneling in, so let me take these here as they come. So is there a way in Central for reviewers to see the files in context of the TOC or the site? So great question. Yeah, not at this time. Reviewers are only going to have access to the files that are in this pending inbox. So if I go back as Tim here, I'm only going to see all of the files here. We don't see them in a TOC order. We can, however, filter by project. So as you can see, I've got a lot of projects copied up to my license. So I can, right now, I don't have any pending files open, so there's nothing here across all of my projects. But if we happen to have a lot of projects copied up to Central, we could filter and say, well, gosh, I only want to see my files that I'm supposed to review for, you know, project number 5 here. And this would list all of the files that would be pending for project number 5. So we can't filter and see things by TOC, but we can filter pending reviews by project. Okay, so I think that's it. I think we've got to, a couple others are funneling in. We're at the top of the hour here, so I want to be mindful of everybody's time. I'm going to keep this question panel open for just a bit. I do want to thank everybody for coming. I'm going to throw my email address up here. If you have any questions about the webinar, any feedback on the webinar, anything about you've seen here, any other suggestions, we've noted some of the great feature suggestions that have come in through the questions. Thank you for those. We're going to make sure to get those logged on your behalf. Anything else you want to send or talk about, drop me a line. I'm happy to help. And if I don't have the answer, I'll do my best to get it for you. So I want to thank you all for coming today. I really hope this was helpful. Again, check out that What's New topic in the Flare Help to get a more detailed look at some of these features and some of the configuration options for some of the things we looked at. And if you don't have a trial yet of Central, I'd encourage you to sign up. Test it out, give it a go. If you had one in the past and it expired, that's okay. Sign up for another one and you'll be able to test all these features. So again, thank you everybody for joining me today. I hope you found this helpful and we hope to see you on the next webinar. So take care.